Now, in other parts of the world, there was a very eye-popping outcome on Saturday, and that resides in the Swamp in Gainesville, Florida, where the South Florida Bulls, fresh off a Week 1 shellacking over Boise State, 31-7, head in to take on what I believe to be a top 10 roster and team in the sport in the Florida Gators, and walk out with a win, 18-16. I'm going to bury the lead here because we always talk about the winners first. Briefly on South Florida. I mean, what an impressive start to the season. I don't know if anybody's had a better 2 weeks in college football than Alex Golesh and his team. Like I said, not just to go in and play the G5 team from the playoffs last year and absolutely dominate them, put up 31 points, but then also go up against what I believe to be a really talented Florida Gators team and squeak out a very different style of win. It wasn't like they were putting up points and explosives against the Gators like they did in Week 1. They got really gritty here and pulled out a low-scoring 2-point win, 17.5-point underdogs. Shout out to you guys if you were not just on the plus 17.5. My friend Teddy had a nice free bet. Put $10 on South Florida to beat the Gators. So shout out to him and anybody else who hit that. Alex Golesh is the man, dude. That sounds redundant. Alex Golesh is the man, dude. He's the man, dude. He comes, if you're not familiar with Alex Golesh, he comes from the Josh Heupel tree. He was the offensive coordinator for some of Tennessee's most potent years offensively before taking this job in South Florida. It's his third season there with the Bulls, 7-6 the first 2 years. Has always played the SEC really competitive. I've always believed for him to be a good head coach. He gets into conference play and things don't maybe go as well, but three seasons ago, so what that would have been the 2023 season, 2 seasons ago if you count, I don't know. 2023, they had a game against Alabama. It was terrible weather. They almost beat the Crimson Tide. It was Nick Saban's final season, and then played them pretty close last year too before Alabama pulled away late in that game. So you're kind of watching this team always gets up for its biggest games. And what do we say about schools when a new head coach takes over? It's like you got to wait till year 3. Maybe you get lucky in year 2, but year 3 is where things really pop off. Alex Golesh in his third season here really taking things off and off to an awesome start and really looks the part of the top G5 team in this sport right now. And I say that as a JMU alum and God help me, we won't get to talk about them today, but the fact that we ran the most predictable 2-quarterback system of all time, still had a massive lead on Louisville kind of late in the game, and they completely blew it, that hurts me. That hurts me to say. I want JMU to be the G5 rep. I'll always pick them to be, but you're lying to yourself if you don't say that South Florida has the most impressive resume at the G5 level so far this season. They just hung around, man. They hung around on Saturday, played a really gritty style of football. Super patient in their approach, knocking down some field goals in the first half, and then got really opportunistic when it was time. The lone touchdown on the day for South Florida was a shot down the field, a 66-yard score for Keyshawn Singleton. Hit him deep. 2 Gators collide with each other, and that's how you end up with the touchdown and not just like a 20, 30-yard gain. And then, kind of let Florida lose the game for themselves beyond that point. They got the lead and then said, hey, Gators, find a way to lose this for yourself. They also did march down the field, I will say, with a couple minutes left to get the game-winning field goal as time expired. Really impressive win for Alex Golesh. And another tough one coming up this week. Can you do it? Can you do it 3 weeks in a row where we're sitting here on a Monday show talking about you? Can you go in and beat Miami after their Week 1 win over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Really excited to watch that game and see how this team continues to respond as the season goes on. Really fun start there for the Bulls. And now, of course, we have to talk about Florida. This was the same old story of you just can't play with your food. You can't play with your food. You can't take these inferior opponents less seriously than you will your SEC games. And that's what happened on Saturday. I'll say this about Florida first, actually. There are a couple of fluky plays away from actually being, the winning team on Saturday. The defenders colliding with each other on South Florida's 66-yard touchdown. You can't predict that to happen. There were two guys there to make the play. They bump into each other. Next thing you know, you're trailing. A bad fumble on a punt that goes into your end zone results in a safety. You lose 2 points there. That being said, I didn't love this approach from the Gators at all to start the day. And it kind of reminds me of what we were just talking about with Michigan, where it's like they're slow playing things on offense and just being patient and maybe, protecting certain guys. Florida, through the first 2 weeks, and especially in this game, I haven't loved the approach on offense. You have a superhuman at the quarterback position in DJ Lagway. If he is playing to his best abilities, that's the top quarterback in the nation. The arm talent is insane. The athletic ability is impressive. Now, the worry with DJ Lagway is he can never stay on the field. So what does that mean you do from a coaching perspective to start the season? You try to minimize the chance for him to get banged up. And there was a lot of just patience, slogginess, being too lax in your approach offensively. It seemed as though they just were like, we've got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up, of which we'll discuss in a second. We just need to get through these first 2 weeks with Lagway healthy, rested, ready to go for SEC play, and we play inferior opponents, so it won't be that big of an issue. And they did take care of Long Island, 56-0, I believe. But they thought they could do the same thing here with South Florida. They didn't take them seriously enough. The effort was poor. Bad penalties. I think 11 penalties on the day for 100 yards. Spitting. 2 days after we watched not Jordan Davis, but the other defensive tackle on the Eagles get ejected for spitting. And you're going to do that right after. Undisciplined team. Didn't take themselves seriously. I know Lagway registered 9 carries technically. College football stats are weird with that. Just 12 yards. I get you need him for the full season. I get it. But you also need him playing like himself if you're going to be this playoff team that people think you could be at your highest potential. I defended this team a ton last season, and this is why this loss kind of stings for me a little bit more than it might non-Florida people that aren't invested in Florida at the moment. When they were in their hole, last year, and everybody was saying fire Napier, we got to get a new guy. I stood by it because I saw a really competitive football team. I saw a coach that I thought was getting a lot of disrespect. And they responded so well in the second half of the season. I'm just surprised that they didn't learn from that mistake last year and not apply it to this season and not take the USFs of the world as seriously as you do the Texases. This is exactly what I said with Alabama last week. If you cannot get up for every single game, talent will never outweigh competitive edge. And that's what happened for the Gators. They lose this one. Is there anything else that I wanted to say with this game? I have to keep checking the notes because I'm trying not to look down as much. I look down a lot in this show, and on the YouTube, it doesn't look that good. Preserving. They got tense when it was close late in the spring. Yeah, if the plan here was to be careful with DJ Lagway, congrats. He's healthy for week 3. But you're also 1-1, and you also have LSU this week, Miami the week after, Texas the week after that, then Texas A&M, Mississippi State after that, who we'll just talk about, got the biggest win they've had in years, and then Georgia after that. If you wanted to be a playoff caliber team, if you wanted to be one of those teams sitting there at the final parts of the season as like we're comparing resumes, the loss to South Florida here is going to outweigh a lot of things when it's all said and done. Now, if you run the table, sure. But we can't look at that schedule and say you're going to run the table. You'll be lucky to get above 500 on that schedule. Really unfortunate situation. I still am going to stick by Billy Napier because I think in the world of college football, we look at one loss a little bit too much now in this game. I said before the season, I believe that 10-2 is the new 9-3, and 9-3 is the new 8-. that 9-3 is the new 10-2. And that 8-4 is the new 9-3. I believe that, just with how competitive the sport is now, you're not going to get the seasons that you expected in the previous eras of this sport. But you can't take these opponents lightly, man. The talent gap is shrinking in this sport, from Power 4 to G5 to all the way down to FCS. It's shrinking on a yearly basis. And if you do not have the competitive nature, the talent gap not being as significant is going to lead to a lot of crazy upsets. And that's what Florida fell victim to on Saturday. So, what else do we want to talk about on today's show? Actually, I forgot to mention. I should circle back to this on Florida. If I know anything about college football, and I've said on this show, I'm a little bit of a noob. It's become my biggest hobby of the last couple of years. I've paid attention to the big storylines and the big programs for the last 10 years, but I eat, sleep, shit, breathe this sport for the last 2 years. If I know anything about college football, Florida is grabbing at least one, if not two, of these next 3 games, and we're going to be right back to talking about them as a potential top 10 team. I don't know if it's LSU. It could be. We could be sitting here next Saturday, and Florida is just dominating the trenches battle against LSU. And Garrett Nussmeier's under pressure, and Florida's running the ball effectively, and they open up for Lagway to be what Lagway is. We could be sitting there and being like, see, we were really down on Florida last week, but look at them now. They just beat LSU, who we thought so highly of after their week 1 game against Clemson. This sport reminds us on a consistent basis, you are never as high as you think you are, and you are never as low as you think you are. Between LSU, Texas, Miami, I could see this team ripping off 2 of them and us, thinking very highly about the Gators by the end of September. So that's the last thing I wanted to say with this game.